In the world of achievement hunting, sometimes you find yourself playing random games just for the sake of achievements, whether it's playing Peppa Pig on Game Pass for an easy 1000 gamer score, or tapping a jar of mayonnaise for a platinum trophy. And retro achievements isn't much different. Sometimes you just want an easy game for some free achievements, and since I'm going to be out of town this week and only have 3 days to make a video, I wanted something quick and easy I can finish before I leave, and so that's why today we're playing some Monopoly for the Nintendo 64. Don't get me wrong though, I actually really love Monopoly, so I was pretty excited to find that Retro Achievements actually has support for several of the Monopoly games. The one we're playing today is the Nintendo 64 version, mainly because it only has 16 achievements, so it's a very easy game to complete. Also, the animations are just really funny. I mean, look at this guy go, bro is running for his life trying to avoid my hotels. So in this video, we're going to collect all the achievements and hopefully I'll teach you guys some pro strats along the way so you can dominate your friends and family the next time you're playing this classic board game. There's only 16 achievements to collect, so let's roll the dice and start playing. The first thing we have to do is pick a token, and we got all the classic Monopoly tokens to choose from, but they're all like people, I guess, in this game. Well, except for the boot, of course, but it's pretty cute. I like the animations, and they even gave the cannon DreamWorks face for some reason. We'll go with the dog for the first game, and now we have to pick a personality type for the computers. This looks like it's some sort of difficulty selection, so for our first game, I decided to go with the bold, cautious, and intelligent type, just for the sake of variety. And now that we're all set up, I'll quickly explain how the game works for those who haven't played this game in a while. Monopoly is a game about buying properties, and the goal is to try to cause the other players to go bankrupt. You move along the board by rolling dice, and if you land on a property that nobody owns, you can buy it. Then if somebody lands on your property, they'll have to pay you rent. If you acquire all the properties that share the same color, that means you have the monopoly and can start building houses and hotels on them, which increases the rent players have to pay if they land on your spaces. And while it is possible to just get lucky and land on each property and buy them that way, it's more likely you'll have to do some trading with the other players to get the properties you need, which is a lot of fun when you're playing with humans. But against computers, it's more so trying to figure out how to trick them into making bad deals, which to be honest is also pretty fun. And 8 of our achievements are for building hotels on the different color properties, so we'll be making a lot of deals. Properties aren't the only thing on the board though, there's also chance and community chest spaces which let you draw a card from their respective decks. These can have effects that either give or take away money from you or move you to somewhere else on the board. And now that we covered the basics, the question is, what's the best property to own? You might think the more expensive properties are the way to go, you'll get the most profits if people land on them after all. But of course, buying and building on them is more expensive as well. A lot of people like to go for the cheap properties. It only costs about $500 to build hotels on the purple properties and about $750 for the light blue properties. They don't pay out as much, but if you can get buildings out quickly, it's not a bad position to be in. But the key to winning Monopoly is controlling the orange properties. These properties give you the best chance at winning, and I'll explain why that is in a moment, but first you have to understand how probability works in Monopoly. You roll 2 6-sided die to determine your move, so at first glance you might think you have a 1 in 12 chance at landing on any space ahead of you, but this isn't true. The most common rolls are going to be 6, 7, and 8, because to roll a 7 for example, there are many dice combinations that can give you that number. You might roll a 5 and a 2, or a 6 and a 1, or maybe even a 3 and 4. But if you want to roll a 12 for example, there's only one combination that gives you that number. So if we look at it like this, you see that the low and high numbers are less likely than the middle numbers, with 6, 7, and 8 being the most common rolls. And understanding that is important because that's part of what makes the orange spaces so strong. The other part is the board layout. You'll notice on the same side of the board that the orange properties are located, there's also a jail. You get sent to jail either by landing on the go to jail space on the opposite corner, rolling 3 doubles in a row during your turn, or by drawing a card from the chance spaces. Because there are so many ways to end up in jail, naturally it makes this side of the board have a higher traffic than others. And once you're out of jail, you are now 6, 8, and 9 spaces away from landing on the orange properties, which means more often than not, you're going to land on them. And whoever owns the orange properties is going to reap the benefits. But it's not just jail. One of the chance cards can send you to St. Charles Place, which again puts the player in the ideal range to land on the orange spaces on their next roll. Another card can send you to the nearest utility space, and there's 2 of those on the board, and look at that, one of them once again puts you in that ideal range. And even if somebody makes it past all your orange spaces, if they land on this chance time space specifically, then they're still at risk because one of the cards is to go back 3 spaces, and once again that puts them right on the orange space. Because there's so many different ways for players to end up on these spaces compared to the rest of the properties, orange properties get landed on most often. So my strategy when I play Monopoly is to always try to secure the orange spaces if possible, or at least the adjacent pink and red spaces. But of course, that is assuming you can actually get them, but in order to do that, you're likely going to have to trade with other players. That's why the second key to winning is to try to acquire a variety of properties in the early game. Usually, I don't even try to buy two of the same property unless it's one of the orange, red, or pinks. I'd rather have one of each property type, that way it increases the chances that I have something everybody wants. So that means if another player is trying to complete their own Monopoly, they'll have to go through me. And that gives me more leverage and control over the game. Of course, this isn't a normal game of Monopoly, let's not forget that we're going after achievements, and we picked up our first one for landing on the go space thanks to a chance card. Every time you complete a lap around the board, you get $200 for passing go. Even if you don't play Monopoly, you've probably heard the expression, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Some people use a house rule that if you land on the go space instead of just passing it, you get double the money. And this game has a cool feature where you can actually set up these custom house rules like this. And house rules are one of the cool things about board games, so it's nice to see that this game includes them. Once the game was going on for a bit, I noticed that Moneybags down here has $9 to his name, looking a little desperate, so now's a good time to try to take advantage of the situation and make a totally fair deal. Because he has one of the blue properties and I have the other one, and since we have achievements for building hotels on all the different property colors, I decided this was a good opportunity to go for one of the harder to get monopolies. So I offered him my yellow property, which does give him a monopoly as well, but with only $9, I know he won't be building anytime soon. He accepts the deal, and now we have our first monopoly. Because the blue properties are the most expensive, each house costs $200, and to build a hotel, we need 4 houses. During this game, I was playing on the default rules, which means you have to build houses on your properties evenly, so we can't just build 4 houses and a hotel right away. We first need to build 4 houses on each of the 2 properties first, so it'll be a while before we can afford hotels. For anybody else going for these achievements, I would recommend setting the custom rules to turn off even building. That way you can just build hotels on a single property for the easy achievement. And now we're just playing the waiting game, just hoping somebody lands on one of my properties so I can get some cash flow. During this time, Moneybags was able to slowly build up some money and managed to put a house on all of his properties too, and once he got a second house, I was starting to get a little bit worried. My blue properties are worth more, but there's more yellow than blue properties, so the odds are slightly in his favor that somebody would land on his property first. And someone did in fact land on his property, so now he has even more houses. He's so aggressive with it. I guess this must be the bold personality type. Every time he gets any amount of money, he just throws it right on houses. I was starting to get a bit worried, so I doubled down and put some more houses up, hoping for a big payoff if these guys would just stop dodging my spaces. But eventually we got lucky, and of all the people to land on my spaces, it was Moneybags. Yes! Ho ho! Suck my nuts, Moneybag! Pay up, loser! $600 to us! Oh, the gamble pays off! He had to take down his houses! Yo, we just made a bunch of families homeless! Let's go! Capitalism, baby! And in just that one move, we're back in control. Moneybags had to sell all of his homes to afford my $600 rent. And just like in real life, the rich get richer because now I can build even more houses. And of course, to add insult to injury, I landed on his space after all the houses are gone. And just to show how strong the blue properties are, we managed to bankrupt Wheelbarrow despite him having $900. And that gets us another achievement because once you bankrupt somebody, you get all their properties. Wheelbarrow had both the utilities and now we own them both, which gets us the achievement. The utilities are kind of weird. You can't build houses on them like the other sets of properties. Instead, you get money based on how much the player rolled during the turn that they land on them. I usually don't even bother with utilities. They're pretty good in the early game before anybody gets a monopoly, but they lose their usefulness as the game goes on. And of course, now we can afford to build our hotels, so that's another achievement down. And now that Moneybags is back to being broke, I decided to make him another offer. This time offering him $250 for his purple property. At first he declined, but then I sweetened the deal with a random red property and that got him to say yes. Not that he's in a position to be haggling with us, but that does get us another monopoly and that money's just gonna end up back in my wallet anyway. And since the purple properties are the cheapest, we can immediately throw up hotels for another achievement. Of course, the cheaper they are, the less profitable, but hey, $450 isn't too bad. And it wasn't long until Moneybags lands on my hotel and gets bankrupted. So like I said, it all comes back to me in the end. Now it's just me and Iron here, and obviously I'm in a winning position. He doesn't even have a single monopoly and I have so many. But while I do want to win, I want to get the other achievements too, so I had to string him along for a little bit. I wanted to make him an offer to get some more monopolies, but he still had a lot of money and could start building if he gets a monopoly of his own, so I decided to wait a little bit until he lands on one of my hotels to get him into a more desperate position. I even tore down the houses on my blue properties just so he wouldn't get bankrupted for landing on them, and with that money I earned, I'm able to build hotels on the red and yellow properties for the achievements. And he couldn't dodge my properties forever, and eventually he landed on my red property and had to give me almost all of his money. And like the vulture I've become during this game, now is the perfect time to make him a trade. I offered him a very generous $400 for his railroad, which gets me an achievement for collecting all 4 of them. The railroads are another special type of property that you don't build on. Instead, you collect rent depending on how many of them that you own. They're another good early game property, however, since there's one railroad on each side of the board, having all 4 of them is pretty nice even in the end game. I was trying to be careful, keeping just enough houses on the board that I can keep taking his money but not causing him to go bankrupt. I planned to eventually trade him whole monopolies until I got to build a hotel on every color for the achievements. I even gave him my blue monopoly in exchange for the cheap light blue monopoly, which is a really generous trade, but since I'm essentially pricing him out of building anything, I wasn't worried. I threw up some more hotels for the next achievement and things were looking good, but there was one flaw to this strategy that I forgot about. There's a card in the chance deck that makes you pay a fee for every hotel and house that you own, something to punish players who build too aggressively. And I got hit with an almost $1,000 fine and I was $466 short. When you owe money that you don't have, you have to start selling your properties. Thankfully, we're still good. I could just sell a bunch of houses to pay it off. But that was scary. Imagine I lost to that. That would make me rage quit for sure. After he landed on another one of my hotels, I made him another trade and got the orange monopoly in exchange for the pink one. Then I threw up some hotels for another achievement. And thanks to a very unlucky roll, he hit a second hotel on the next turn and that caused him to go bankrupt. So we'll have to get the green and pink monopolies in another game, but at least we picked up another achievement for winning a 4-player game. That brings us to 10 out of 16 achievements, and our next game we gotta do a 3-player game since that's another achievement. I decided to make both the computers cautious for this one just to see if I would notice anything different, and these guys were not cautious. I convinced Jockey to give me a monopoly for just $200 and some properties that doesn't even get him a monopoly. So I had an early game advantage, but I guess I was also not being cautious because I didn't even see that the battleship somehow got lucky enough to just buy a monopoly without trading. And I got hit with the hotel fee and had to sell some of my hotels just to pay it off. Then this guy spends $500 on a green property worth only $300 during an auction. I had to give up the orange monopoly to get my hotels back, and then Jockey spends $520 to complete his monopoly despite having to mortgage all of his properties to afford it. And then the battleship pays almost $400 for a random red property that doesn't even get him close to a monopoly, and he has literally $31 to his name. On what planet is any of this cautious? Now I'm scared to see what the bold computers are gonna do. I managed to bankrupt Jockey when he finally landed on my property, and now that I have all of his stuff, I decided to trade the orange monopoly to the battleship in exchange for the pink one. But I completely goofed and accidentally only offered him a single orange property instead of the full set, but for some reason he still accepted the trade. I guess he only had $16 and was desperate. But maybe he should have thought of that before using Afterpay to make installments on properties he has no reason to buy. But before building any hotels, I wanted to wait a little bit because he still has a hotel on his purple property, so I wanted to keep some cash on me. And while I was waiting, I picked up another lucky achievement for rolling 3 doubles in a row. That of course got us sent to jail, but I'm sure they'll take I was doing it for an achievement as a legal defense. Once I got some money saved up, I put down some hotels on the pinks for another achievement, but before I can get his green monopoly, he landed on one of my hotels and got bankrupted. So we won that game, and that gets us another achievement for winning a 3-player game. And now we gotta do a 2-player game, which honestly feels so wrong. Monopoly is definitely not a 2-player game. I decided to play around a bit with the custom house rules for the next game just to mix things up a bit, and I'd love to hear the house rules that you guys use if anybody plays this game, so feel free to let me know down in the comments. I always like the rule where you don't collect rent while in jail, that way it feels more like a punishment. Otherwise, going to jail can actually be a good thing because it prevents you from landing on hotels. Another one that I know a lot of people like is the free parking jackpot, where any money paid to the bank gets added to a pot and then whoever lands on free parking gets it. I don't like that one personally, however, one of our achievements is to have $5,000 in cash on us. So I decided to enable this rule to get some more money in circulation, but honestly a 1v1 game isn't the best for that achievement, especially since the computer ended up winning it anyway. Since there's only 2 players in this game, we both managed to get monopolies just by chance. He got the pink and purple, but I managed to get the green and the blues. So I was able to get the last hotel achievement, and I tried to stall to get the $5,000, but there's just not enough money in circulation with only 2 players. So I just bankrupted him to get the achievement for winning a 2-player game, and I decided I would go for $5,000 on another game. And to get this achievement, I had to play extremely toxic. I realized computers don't like to give you a monopoly, even if you offer them a ridiculous amount of money. The only way to get them to give you a monopoly is to give them a monopoly, which isn't something I wanted to do in this game. Fortunately, I was able to get the cheap purple monopoly thanks to the car declining to buy it and putting it up for auction. And I paid $255 for it, which sounds crazy for a $60 property. But I was prepared to pay a lot more for it because this monopoly was key to my plan. Because to make money, you have to spend money, and while computers won't sell you a monopoly, they will sell you the individual properties that don't give you a monopoly. So I spent this entire game slowly buying almost every property on the board, offering way more than the properties are worth. So eventually it got to the point where everybody else had thousands of dollars and I had the least amount of money, but I own almost all the properties. Nobody else can actually make any headway in this position. Even though they have more money, they don't have any way of taking my money. The only monopoly in play is my cheap purple monopoly, so all I have to do is decline every single trade no matter how much they begged and pleaded for me to do so. And as long as I do that, there's no way for me to lose. He wants all 4 of my railroads and the blue for one of the red monopolies. Nope, I ain't giving you nothing. Nope. I am not trading you a single thing, car. Nope, you can keep trying all you want. I ain't trading you. I'm just spamming B right now every time car goes. Even that one chance card that makes me pay a fee for all my buildings means nothing because I only own 2 hotels. If I tried playing like this against human players, I think I would get kicked out of the group, but computers have no choice but to sit there and suffer. It's a slow process, but all I have to do is wait. I have the free parking jackpot and the double money for landing on go rules on, and despite me having hotels, they're cheap, so nobody's actually gonna get bankrupted. This is just a never-ending capitalistic nightmare where nobody gets to actually play the game, and slowly over time, my money is just guaranteed to keep going higher. Man, I wish I knew how to program a bot or something so I could just have them continue this game 24/7 just to see how high the numbers will go. And after landing on a free parking jackpot, we got the achievement for getting to $5,000. And with that, we have officially mastered Monopoly for the Nintendo 64, making this my 13th mastery on retro achievements. It was a pretty fun game to master. It took me almost 5 hours, but that's because I was streaming and goofing around with the chat. Honestly, you can knock these achievements out in like an hour or 2. So for any of my fellow retro achievement hunters, this is an easy mastery if you're looking for something laid back. And I do like Monopoly a lot, so it was fun to get to play this game and talk about it for a video. And like I said earlier, I have a trip planned soon, so I needed a game that I can finish quickly so I could still upload a video this week. I hope you guys still enjoyed the video even though it's not a big game like Mario Party or Banjo-Kazooie or the other kinds of games I normally cover. But sometimes it's nice to just lay back and play an easy game that's short and sweet. If you guys enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate likes and comments. As always, that really helps the video get pushed out to more people. If you don't know what to comment, share me some of your own personal Monopoly strategies, or even tell me some other classic board games that you enjoy playing. There is other board game simulator games out there, so maybe I'll cover another one the next time I want something quick and easy. so let me know your favorites down in the comments. As always, I'm uploading a video covering some classic nostalgia games every single week, so make sure you subscribe if you're new so you don't miss them. I also stream all my gameplay live on Twitch, so feel free to follow me over on there if you want to catch me live. And that's gonna wrap up this week's video. Once again, I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Oh no, the game froze. I think it did. I think the game like crashed or soft locked or something. Something about me like trying to buy the houses. Juice just crashed the housing market.